to Tom Girl, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. On today's show, we're talking to Bonnie Wallace, mom of celebrity actress Dove Cameron and voice coach Claire Hosterman, acting career consultant, podcast host, and author. We'll talk about her experience raising two girls in show business, how the written world helped them to succeed at an early age, and how she's carrying on a family legacy with the launch for a new phonics book program, We Can Books. Welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Thank you, JJ. It's a true pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. Well, let's first begin about talking about the two girls, raising two girls in show business. I'm sure that has been quite a ride. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the easier part of it is probably that they weren't fully raised in show business. We were from a little island near Seattle called Bainbridge Island and moved down to LA when Dove was actually 14. And Claire was off to university at that point. So they were raised in a pretty normal environment until Dove was 14 and we landed down here. And of course, then things started to get sort of, extra normal. I want to say abnormal. It's its own world down here for sure. Yeah. But her personality was pretty fully formed by the time we hit down here, which I think was probably helpful. And then Claire finished school and ended up coming to join us later. What was it like? So, the last year before we moved down to LA, Deb was 13 and she was lobbying me every single day, pretty much with everything other than PowerPoints, as she likes to say, why we needed to move to LA, why she had to be in LA, what she wanted to do could only be done in LA. And I finally, hit this place where I thought, well, I know she's got what it takes. All of her mentors are pulling me aside and saying, she's really got the thing. If she's going to be able to make use of it, she needs to be in LA. And I thought, I don't want to look back and wonder what might have happened if we hadn't gone for it. I just didn't want to face that. Everybody knows what the odds are. The odds are ridiculous. The odds are silly. I have a brain. And of course, everybody in my life didn't hold back from reminding me how crazy I was, yeah. What the odds are, what the odds are. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to live with myself if I don't want to look back and wonder. Like, that's a big thing that drives me. And so we threw everything we knew, everything we had into a truck and came down here, effectively not knowing anybody and not knowing what we were doing. And figured we'd figure it out, which is crazy. And I don't recommend it, Were we lucky? Yes, really lucky. And after a few years had gone by and, Dove had her own show, et cetera, that's when her agent, Pam Fisher at A3, pulled me aside and said, you're in a position to help a lot of other families. I know you can write, you're the most grounded stage parent I know. Why don't you think about writing a book? And so that's where that went, in that direction. And that's how I ended up going in the path of writing books and creating a podcast and being a consultant for other parents. But meanwhile, to get to that point, like I said, I don't know what we were thinking would happen, but it was a full calendar year after we landed before she got her first gig. Mm-hmm. And that was the longest year of our lives. We're like, oh my God, were we nuts? What were we thinking? And it was a long, long, hard year of I don't know how many auditions, 100 auditions maybe, before she got her first thing, and then 8 more months before she got her second thing, really long. And her second thing turned out to be the pilot that became Liv and Maddie. And then, we really were kind of off to the races. But it's people, what they see is the outside stuff. What they see is what's posted on Instagram or what's in a magazine or whatever. What they don't and they can't see, because you can't really share it, and besides people aren't tending to share it, is the hard work, the slog, the grind, the grit that is absolutely behind any success story like these ones. And like I look at Dove, and she's just, her work ethic is stellar. It's stunning. It's incredible. She works so hard to do what she does and has for so many years now. It's been a dozen years. You don't see that, but that's what's behind everything. And you can't really you can't really prepare anybody properly for that. You either have got that sort of, tenacity and belief in yourself to power through when it's really hard, or you don't, and so that's actually, talent aside, good luck aside, that's one of the components to success in this industry for sure.
So where did you find the power and the strength to get through after that year where it was really tough and not getting the auditions, to stick it out and push through and still believe?
Well, I think the answer is kind of embedded in your question, isn't it? I mean, I think that you can't really do anything in life that is really, really, really hard unless you have some sort of ironclad belief in yourself, like really strong sense of self-esteem, like, you know what? I can do hard things, basically, to take Glennon Doyle's phrase, right, which is such a great one. Like, this is hard and I can do it and I want it enough that I'm just going to stick with it until I do, whatever that looks like. And when I think about the very best things in my life, and at this point in my life, I'm in my late 50s. And so like I've got a pretty good catalog, right? The best, most precious things to me, every one of them, bar none, came from taking some kind of a fairly big risk. There's nothing really special or beautiful or precious in my life that has not come from taking a big risk. And risks are scary, but whether it's my children or, my wonderful husband, who I met 4 years ago and married a year ago, or doing the crazy thing of throwing everything we owned into a truck and coming down to LA, not knowing what we were doing. Big risks. And why is that important? Because to take a big risk, you have to believe in yourself. You have to have that sense of self-esteem that says, I can figure this out. I don't know what's going to happen. I know, but I'm going to land on my feet and figure it out. And whatever happens, it's going to be okay. And that sense of self-esteem and belief in yourself is bedrock to a successful life. And I was very lucky that my father instilled that in me, partly through teaching me how to read at an early age. I have done my very best to instill that in my daughters, and they seem to have run with it. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we share, and I'm really pleased for that, because that's one of the critical ingredients for a really interesting life.
Mm-hmm. I love that all three of you, because your other daughter, Claire, is doing the vocal coach, but she's worked with people on American Idol, Songland, all kinds of shows as well. But you're all three like using your voice in different ways. And kind of elaborate on that, how that's kind of woven you guys together as well.
It's so interesting, and Claire and I talk about this a lot, because, it's a metaphor, isn't it? Finding your voice, using your voice. It's not just about singing or speaking. It's really a metaphor for your spirit, for who you are, for your soul, for your essence, and that's part of the magic that Claire has. I tell you, she's not just really super skilled at helping people sing better, well, amazingly, which she is. Part of the magic that Claire brings to what she does is she helps people find their voice, and she helps unblock them, emotionally. And there's a lot of stuff about emotion with singing that she's really masterful around. And so it all comes from the same place. It all comes from, all right, who am I in the world? I'm a force for good. That's my commitment. That's who I want to be when I wake up in the morning. I want to be a force for good in the world. My two daughters share that desire. How do we manifest that? How do we make that come into being? Well, we're all individuals. And so that's going to take really different shapes, right? For Claire, she's got this particular gift. And so that's part of how she's a force for good in the world, is she literally helps people find their voice, which is transformational, by the way, for their lives. It's literally transformational for their lives. It's about much more than singing. And Dove, of course, is doing work that is far beyond, creating music that people, find moving and powerful and important, and creating stories as an actor that people also find really touch their lives. You know, she's literally using her voice to hold space for people and bring energy and awareness to certain things. And I mean, just couldn't be prouder of her for the work she's doing there. And then I'm doing my bit over here in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's the last dozen years, it's taken the shape of helping families of young actors and taking everything I've learned and taught myself in that milieu, and you know, writing books and consulting with parents and having my own podcast. But now, at this point in my life, I'm just really excited to bring it down to a much more foundational level, because reading turns out to be one of the keys to a successful life, you know, to the foundation of a life that can then unfold wonderfully.
Yeah. Tell me about how this process began with your family, from your father, and how it's gotten now passed along.
It's a pretty cute story, honestly. And my dad is actually an absolutely amazing human. He taught me to read when I was 4, using very similar phonics techniques, but in a book with no pictures. I was still excited enough about it because it was like, what do you mean these shapes make sounds, and now I can read books on my own? You know, it was just like, it was just the most exciting thing. You know, it's such a special thing to sit with an adult that you love and like put all that together, and it's magical. It's really magical. And then I think it's one of the most magical things in the world to teach a child how to read. So then, you know, fast forward when Claire is 4 and in that magical place when she was 4, I was 4. A lot of kids are ready when they're 4, but the important thing is, do they understand that letters and sounds are related? You know, so if you can do an ABC book and you know, B is B, right? D is duh, and get the basics, then you're ready to move forward and start putting it together, right? So few kids are ready at 3, a lot of kids are ready at 4, most kids are ready at 5, you know, so that's sort of the zone. Anyway, when she hit that zone, my dad made her a one of a kind, it was almost like a photo album, like a personalized learn how to read book for her, using photos from our family, right? So he spent a lot of time figuring out the science behind it and getting the word sets just right. And the very first book was actually like a 3-ring binder called Claire Can. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
And it was black and white, and it was family photos with these phonics word sets. So, you know, here's the first one, right? My mom with Claire, hug, bug, tug, rug,
Lug,
you know,
rug. Yeah.
you know, right? So
Mhm.
he made 3 of these, and because it was Claire Can 1, 2, and 3. And then 7 years later, he made the same ones for Chloe Can, Chloe's Dove. And my children literally learned how to read on these things, and they loved them because they were special. You know, I mean, kids love to see images of themselves. It's like, look, that's me, that's my cat. You know, oh look, that's my hat. And so they're authentically and intuitively engaging. They just are. And then you've got that keyword that makes sense, and then all of a sudden, it's like a Rosetta Stone almost. It's like all the other words that are phonically related open up and are available to the child. And it's a really intuitive thing that my dad figured out, to combine the photos with the phonics word sets. So fast forward, 30 years later. and I'm sharing these books with my husband, right? I'm like, look at these amazing books that my dad made for the kids, and they learned how to read on them. And, you know, they were really effective. They really worked, and they loved them. I said, you know, we could do something with this for other families. We could, you know, in the 30 years since your dad, you know, spent a lot of time with the Xerox machine and the scissors and the 3-ring binders, some interesting technology has come into play. You know, we have these phones, and they have thousands of photos on them, and they could take photos and just instantly download them. And we have a friend who's capable of making an app, and there's this print on demand, and he helped me understand that we could actually we could create a project, it's a business, basically a book building app for other families to very easily make their own. And now, what we've come up with are these beautiful full color, I mean, they feel really nice in the hand, but they're one of a kind. And what we want people to do is use their own photos. If they run across a page and they're like, I don't think I have any photos like this on my phone. I don't think I can come up with a photo for this. Like, okay, then, use one of the preloaded photos. Every page we've got a nice photo in there, but what we hope people will do is mostly use photos from their child's world. And then what a really fun thing to do is to make a little project of it with the kid, like a little scavenger hunt. Say, let's make a book together. Let's spend a couple hours this Saturday and let's make a book. Let's go on a little treasure hunt. And what can we find? What can we find to take a picture of with you, with one of these words? Is it you holding the cat? Is it you in a hat? Is it you on a mat? Is it, and let's make a day of it, and let's go around. And then what you end up with is not only like this amazing, one of a kind, powerful, effective book that'll, help the child learn how to read, but it's also like a souvenir of a special time, and it becomes a family heirloom.
Yeah.
So
and a great memory to have, for years to life,
right?
too, for your life.
Right? Oh, I'm so excited about it.
Where can people get it, and how can they create their own?
Well, it's really easy. Go to the App Store. The Weekend Books app is going to be available on the App Store by the time the podcast hits. I would encourage people to go to our website, weekendbooks.com, just to get their heads around it and learn a little bit about it. And of course you can download the app from the website as well. And it's really easy. You just download the app and open it up and start taking pictures. By the time you finish filling in all the photos and making a little special dedication and a cover photo of the child, order the book up, and you should have it in about 10 days.
10 days is so quick, too. That's such a fast turnaround.
It's pretty good. Well, we're really lucky. We've partnered with some incredible people to make this all come together, one of which is like probably the very best top-notch printing partner in the country. And they do incredibly good work. I mean, we tested out 4 different printers before settling on these guys, because nobody's better. And they do beautiful work, and they deliver it really promptly. And then there's 3 books in the series ultimately, to be really fully on their feet, ready to tackle any word that comes the child's way. They should go through all 3 books in the series. But
and talk about some of the importance. I know we were talking earlier about especially now in this day and age where we're all on screen so much and kids are on screen so much, or it might be easier, to just give the kids the iPad. Talk about the importance of learning and reading and some of the research that you found with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of studies coming out, and they're all pointing in the same direction, that all of us at any age, not just children, we learn better and we retain better when we read off of paper rather than off of screens. And this isn't super well understood yet. The sort of leading theory is that the brain is kind of taxed by the subtle flicker of the screen. It's like it's got more work to do. And so takes more processing and more energy. So it doesn't, learn and retain as well, because it's doing more than one thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes sense to me. I know I actually definitely remember things better and retain better when I'm reading off of a page than off of a screen. But in addition to that, there's growing evidence that young brains don't develop the capacity for learning and logic and language as well if they have more than 1 or 2 days of screen time, 1 or 2 hours of screen time a day. And that's really scary to me, because of course most children have a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this kind of real-time experiment with our kids' brains. And I think anything you can do to limit screen time, especially when kids are really young, give them opportunities to read on paper whether it's with a weekend books book or any other book, that's a good thing, and then there's the whole sort of intimacy and bonding thing. We've all seen, the parents at the park where, the kid is on the swing and the parent has their phone and their face in their phone. And, I'm not a Luddite. I'm on my screens all the time. I know it's hard to disconnect, but it's important and it's special to children to feel like they're the center of attention sometimes, and to sit down with your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew, your special young person, sit with them on your lap next to you, together, focusing on the same thing, a book. It's priceless. Yeah. It's incredibly important. And it tells the child, I matter, I'm important. And then if you can get to the point where you've been able to teach them how to read effectively and well, and they hit school and they hit the ground running, and they're like, this is fun, this is easy, I've got this, and they run with it for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
Versus, this is hard, this is confusing, I hate it, I'm not good at it, I'm not very smart. Like, those are two very different paths for a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you start in the same place, but you end up in a really different place. And this is where those moments and that intention, it has lasting consequences. It's really important.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because I've done some fun, cool things in my life, but I feel like I finally found my life's work, right? Something that's like, this gets me up out of bed in the morning. This is like, this is good. This makes me excited and happy because I know it works, and I know it makes a difference.
I love it. But you can just see the joy about it on your face too.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
How has it been challenging for you to go on a new venture like this? Or what things have you learned either about yourself or through this process?
What a great question. Again, I think it all sort of ties back to the same thing, doesn't it? I was so lucky. I got a really great start in life, feeling like, oh, I understand this. I can really, like, learning how to read early, having that sense of confidence. Like, I don't know how to do this, but I can figure it out. Mm-hmm. My whole life has been a series of those adventures. Seriously, one after the next after the next. And this is just another one of those, like, I don't know anything about building an app, but you know what? I'm going to find someone who does. and I don't know anything about this, but I'm going to put together a team, and I know about this. And, so it's like, it's like, okay, there's no manual for this, but I'm going to figure it out. And so it's been an exciting adventure. And that's it. Right. So one of the things that got us through, circling back to an earlier part of our conversation, when things were hard at the very beginning of our journey, when Dove and I first landed here, we're like, are we nuts? It was like crickets out there in Los Angeles, like, hello, is anybody home? Why did we come down here? So much of life's experience, I think, is in how you frame things, right? How are you framing your experience? So it can be scary, it can be terrible, it can be whatever, it can be a tragedy, or it can be an adventure. And what is an adventure? An adventure is when you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that's an adventure, right? Yeah. So that's what I would tell her when it would be like, what are we doing? Be like, you know what, baby? We are on an adventure. And we are, and we were, and we still are. And it's still a crazy adventure. It's a crazier adventure than ever. I mean, it just kind of it's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But this is an adventure. So I'm on an adventure with this, and it makes it more fun, and it makes it less scary.
I absolutely love that. That gives, you're talking about goosebumps. That gives me goosebumps because that's what it's all about, right? Like, right? Just, we don't have to have it all figured out. And it's like, just enjoying whatever comes and being like ready, okay, well, I'll, like you said, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll see what this brings.
And another little metaphor that I've probably said so many times, my kids are just like, okay, we got it. But it's like, look, you can't have it all figured out at the beginning. You can't see where you're going at the beginning. You can't. It's not available to you. But it's sort of like crossing a river in the fog, right? And you're on a rock, and you can see another rock to jump to. It's like, okay, I can't see much further ahead than the next rock, so I'm going to jump to this rock. Oh, now I can see 2 other rocks. You can only see so far ahead, but from each rock that you jump to, you can see the next move or two. You can figure it out as you go,
Yeah.
and you will.
Yeah, such great advice. I honestly could listen to you talk all day. You're so motivational, like, and have such great spirit. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, before I let you go, tell everybody again how they can get this book and how they can create these wonderful memories for themselves.
Well, thank you. I would encourage everybody to go to our website, wecanbooks.com. And you can also just go straight to the App Store and download the app and make your own We Can book. In our case, it was Claire can and Chloe can, and in your case, it's your child can.
Yeah. What a great thing with the holidays coming up too. That'd be such a fun little gift for everybody to give their children. Yeah, good timing.
Thank you. We're working on that.
Well, I wish you the absolute best with it. I'll have to give it to gifts to anybody. Well, my niece is a little older, but we'll get it to everybody out there. But I just think it's wonderful, and I love that your passion and enthusiasm is just amazing. So I really hope that this is really great for you, and I can't wait to see like where it evolves and what's next.
Me too. Thank you so much, JJ.
All right. Thank you for your time. Thanks everybody so much for listening again. That wraps up another week of Tom Girl, and we'll see you here again next week. Please feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram, and of course, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.